Well, here's something new, a high-quality coffee machine from Eureka. You know, the grinder people. The Lilith Bianca that I had on loan from our friends at homecoffeemachines.ie is back in the shop and for sale used. I have no stake in that. If you're in the EU, you can look into it. I'll put a link in the description. This machine from Eureka was sent free of charge. You're going to see it here for some months, and we'll go into it thoroughly. Eventually, I will sell it and donate the entire proceeds to charity. I'll be doing that with some other items, but I don't like to make a fuss about donations because that can look like virtue signaling, so I'll just leave it like this. You can assume that any equipment you see on this channel is either something I bought or a loaner, or if it's a freebie, that I will either donate the thing itself or sell it and donate the proceeds. If I ever deviate from that, I will let you know up front. I was fond of the Bianca, as I mentioned several times while I was using it, but I'm starting to prefer this one in some ways. Build quality and fit and finish especially. So let's take a good look at it, shall we? Oh my God.
It's like a miracle.
I've had a Profitec P600 and a Lilith Bianca, and both machines are the same type, E61 dual boiler. This is a different machine type, an E61 with a heat exchanger. Regulating the temperature of your brewing water with a heat exchanger is a bit of a black art. PID temperature control helps, but it's a convenience, not a necessity. There's a learning curve, but you'll develop an intuitive sense of how to work things once you get accustomed to it. One advantage with heat exchangers is that your brewing water is always fresh. This machine can be programmed to turn itself on with individual start times for each day of the week. You can also program it to turn itself off after a set period of inactivity. This is all pretty standard. There are 4 models. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'll link to Eureka's web page so you can look and download the brochures and compare them yourself. They're available with replaceable side panels with wood grain or colors that match some of the Mignon grinder colors. They're small and apartment-friendly and will fit under most cabinets with room for cups on top. You can have one with or without PID temperature control and with either a vibration pump or a rotary pump. There's no difference with pump performance. They have the same maximum rates of flow and both come up to pressure in the same amount of time. Vibration pumps are less expensive and take up less space, but they are noisy. The one I'm showing you is a rotary pump model with PID control. I found that the boiler heats completely in about 8 or 8.5 minutes, and the group comes up to 80 degrees after another 10 minutes. I measured the group temperature on the brass surface above the shower screen, so I would recommend setting your wake timer to 20 minutes before you expect to start using it, which is pretty standard for an E61. Let's see how well the PID works. Naturally, with a heat exchanger, you'll get flash boiling once everything comes fully up to temperature. This machine has a pretty high rate of flow, and I found that a 6-second pre-flush works nicely. Let's look at temperature predictability. Here's the thermocouple probe set carefully so it doesn't touch any metal. I'll do this a few times. The machine is set for 93 degrees, and I find that it holds 93 after flushing and doesn't start to fall off until I've used considerably more water than a shot would consume. It seems to go quickly because the flow is unimpeded, but the volume out tells the tale. Okay, we'll start with a 6-second flush and then take a pause and try it. Okay, back in 20 seconds. All right, let's see. 93, 93 something, 92 and a half, 91. That was good. And that was probably 100 milliliters out before it showed any substantial fall off. So much more than a shot would require. So that's quite good. The temperature range selection is slightly odd. You can choose warm, meaning 90 degrees, or hot at 93 degrees, or very hot at 96 degrees. I see no reason why anyone would prefer this to numerical temperatures. Warm, very hot, those are opinions. I think most people prefer facts. We've got a perfectly standard E61 here with the classic pre-infusion chamber and soft spring that permits water, when it reaches around 2 bar, to push the upper exhaust valve open to fill this chamber here, causing the shot to pause for a couple of seconds. This is standard behavior for the E61, although as I have mentioned in earlier videos, no one ever seems to talk about it. Personally, I prefer a long pre-infusion, like a Slayer shot, so I use the switch handle to do it manually. This one was adjusted perfectly out of the box, so when I lower the handle, the switch opens before any pressure is released. You can just let go of it when you feel that detent in the middle. Incidentally, you can do manual pre-infusion with an E61 equally well using a rotary or vibration pump, whether the machine is plumbed in or uses a reservoir. I've seen some claims online that it requires a rotary pump or that the machine needs to be plumbed in, but that's absolutely false. You don't need line pressure. You have a pump, and you can control it. Sounds to me like a salesperson trying to sell the pricier rotary pump as a more versatile option. Don't worry, it's not. One thing I noticed on this machine was the rate of flow increasing as the shot progresses. Naturally, turbulence causes the puck to loosen, so resistance from the coffee bed falls off. That's inevitable with any machine, but in this case it was pronounced and would indicate a relatively large nozzle, or gicleur. So let's measure the rate of flow unimpeded. I like to have a pressure gauge, so I installed one. This is not stock. And the stock rate of flow is 100 milliliters in 6 seconds. Or around 16 milliliters per second. And just to verify, using a filter blank, we're looking at around 9 bar of line pressure, which is just fine. We'll find a bog standard mushroom and nozzle up here. As you'd expect, the gicleur is 0.8 of a millimeter. This might create a learning curve for beginners. 0.6 of a millimeter is more easily controllable. It'll usually deliver around 7 or 8 milliliters per second, which means you don't have to react as quickly. But if you're experienced, you'll probably prefer this one. It's said to be more versatile, which is something we can look into later. These machines don't come equipped with a variable flow valve, which I've said on several occasions strikes me as rather gimmicky, and I don't see much advantage with it. I prefer not to have one. You can cycle the pump perfectly well yourself and accomplish virtually the same things. Start slow and speed up. Start fast and slow down. Draw it out for, 60 seconds or longer if you like. The included portafilters and baskets are good quality, but there's no tamp. I guess they consider that too personal a choice. The reservoir is small, at just 2 liters, and there's no water level indicator, at least not yet, but there are plumbed-in versions. I would probably choose that option if I wasn't inclined to change machines every few months. The drip tray holds only 1 liter, too small in my opinion, but you could plumb it in. If you're handy, you already know how to do it. If you're not, you could bring it to your neighborhood handyman and they can install a hose fitting easily and cheaply. The rack is bent so that it fits the tray snugly, and those bends support it much better than laying a flat piece on top of tabs or wings like the Bianca. I complained about the rattly, buzzy nature of the Bianca, but this drip tray rests snugly in its place, and the rack is secure as well. Nothing here flexes or rattles. The tray, as I said, is too small, especially for a heat exchange machine where you're using extra water for flushing. This fills up fast, so keep a mug or some other container handy for flushing the group. Steam performance is very good, but I am really pushing it here. This is 400 milliliters of cold milk. The nozzle has a 4-hole tip. I think you can see, as we approach 60 degrees, that the temperature's rate of rise starts to decrease. I would say that steaming 300 milliliters or less at a time would be no problem at all. Both wands have Teflon straws inside and are meant to be cool to the touch, but there's enough conductive heating to make these little clip-on handles worthwhile, especially on the hot water side. The wands can be moved out of the way, which is where I keep them since I'm not really a fan of milk drinks. Remember that when you draw steam, you should also draw some water from it to retard the buildup of minerals. This is a very competent machine, and I think the quality is good. Fit and finish are excellent. The frame is smooth and very rigid. At a glance, I thought it might be glass-reinforced plastic, but it's actually a light alloy and nicely cast. These pads here are a good size and provide lots of friction. They're not individually adjustable, unfortunately. I wouldn't mind more clearance underneath so that I can get my hands under it and move it more easily. At some point, I'll open her up for a close look inside to judge the build quality and component quality and see how DIY friendly it is. But just removing the top panel for a quick preview, I would call that a sensible layout for a compact machine with tidy wiring and plumbing and components that look solid. I don't think these are available in North America and Asia yet, but I'm told they will be fairly soon, so keep an eye out. Well, that's about all for today. The family and I will pop over to London for a short holiday, chiefly in pursuit of some fine dining. You've got to get out of the Dublin food rut periodically. I'll be back soon with a report on the trip, especially from a culinary point of view. So keep in touch. Cheers! So what do you think of this machine? Why don't you tell me in the comments? I really want to know. Yeah, right.